Hawaii, the beauty, the color, the pageantry of tropical paradise. Home to some of the world's most spectacular views, not to mention a serenity all its own. But that's just the beginning. The waters off Hawaii are always filled with surfers looking for that one magical ride. And a magical ride is what the hydroplanes are here for. Surf's Up for the final stop on the Thunder Tour next. Welcome to ESPN Speed World coverage of the Ralph's Thunder Tour presented by Las Vegas. The USS Reuben James stands guard over the docks in Pearl Harbor where the hydroplanes are set to take center stage. It's hydros in paradise as the fastest boats in the world come to Honolulu for the grand finale of the '99 UHRA season, the JN Chevrolet Hydrofest from Pearl Harbor. Aloha nui loa kako Hawaii. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Hawaii. I'm Rich Hollenberg, my broadcast partner, as always, Steve Montgomery. And, Steve, it's a long, tough trip for the race teams to get to Hawaii. 8 teams have made it. It should have been 9.
Our 9th boat hit a bit of a speed bump, you might say, on that treacherous backstretch in San Diego. Greg Hopp getting the U-15 high in the sky. He was right side up after a couple of bounces. Greg is okay, but the fleet left just 2 days later. No way to repair that boat in time to get here. So 8 boats will be competing here on a very windy Pearl Harbor.
One of those boats competing, of course, the National High Points champion and driver champion, Miss Budweiser and Dave Villwock. He's going to be looking for his 5th straight win, but he's going to have to do it from lane 5.
Every time he wins an event, they move him further outside at the start. Technically, he's in lane 5, but only 4 boats in each heat. They haven't quite worked that out yet. He will be somewhere to the right of a lot of fast boats, and it's going to make for a very exciting day of racing.
Dave Villwock was in Heat 1A, but he had a tough draw because the other 2 best boats on the '99 season also in Heat 1A, in Chip Hanauer in the Miss Pico and Mark Webber in New York International. And that's where we start our race coverage. And here's the start of Heat 1A, and Mark Webber did get lane 1 with Chip Hanauer in lane 2. Ken Muscatel and Miss Northwest Unlimited in lane 3, and there's Dave Villwock on the outside.
On the outside where he's supposed to be, lane 4 or 5, and a disappointment for all the fans right here as you see the blue Pico in the middle of your picture fading. Chip Hanauer's engine did not respond well for the rundown to start finish, and that was pretty much the story of Heat 1A.
Steve, another story in Heat 1A, Dave Villwock, despite being on the outside, as you see, was able to pass Mark Webber in the York International around that first turn.
This gave us an early indication that the Budweiser team had a terrific setup for Pearl Harbor, and they were going to be very, very fast all day. Mark Webber again getting the inside, something he's done very well this year, but didn't have the horsepower to hold off Big Red coming up on his right.
That was a great look from the O'Doul's eye in the sky, and Chip Hanauer, despite the early problems, seemed to get it going straight later on in the heat.
Just didn't have the top end he needed to run with the boats up front. We hoped at this point that those problems would be ironed out for the Pico team as the day went on.
Here's a look as they're coming down the backstretch and into the final turn. Mark Webber, nice job hanging tough, close by the Miss Budweiser, but still Dave Villwock able to hold him off.
From this angle, it appears that Mark Webber has a little bit of an advantage there, but Dave Villwock and Miss Budweiser apparently can go just about as fast as he needs to, and that's what he did right here to take the checkered flag.
You might see that all day, Steve, in all the subsequent heats, because Dave Villwock on the outside, whenever they come into the turns, it gives the inside man an advantage like Mark Webber had, but he's got that stretch speed where once you get into the straightaway, he can pull ahead of you.
David, on paper, it looked like a tough draw, but no problem, even coming from the outside.
Looked like Chip and the Pico team had some problems. Probably not running their best stuff early in the day, I suspect. They'll come off with we call them the howlers. When they bring out the howlers late in the day, we know they'll be tough. Until then, they'll be easy pickings.
Mark Tate and the Freddy's Club had to be considered the favorite going into Heat 1B, a very favorable draw. Plus, Mark has always had success here in Honolulu, the winningest driver here on this race course at Pearl Harbor. What's more, you saw in Heat 1A, Dave Villwock had to win from lane 5. Well, Mark Tate and Freddy's Club had a similar situation. They started the race in lane 3.
Jimmy King put the outrigger Lumar boat in lane 1. Right beside him, Mike Hansen making a great start in the U9. Then Mark Tate in the Freddy's Club Ohana, and Jerry Hale come from the outside in Bob Fendler's Waikiki Trolley. A great start for Mike Hansen.
Yeah, driving a local ride, Miss Starro Enterprises, and Mike Hansen seemed to be running well early on with the lead going into that first turn.
Just a spectacular start by the veteran in the white boat, leaving a couple of very quick qualifiers behind him. The question was, would he be able to stay out there? Well, the answer came fairly soon.
There's a good look at the white boat and Mike Hansen having some problems throughout the season, but with the cowling on top and handling the saltwater on Pearl Harbor pretty well early going.
Mike Hansen in a pretty good boat ride out front in the boat owned by Mike and Lori Jones. But here comes a challenge. On his left, that's Jimmy King in the outrigger Lumar. And coming up on the right side is Mark Tate in the Ohana Freddy's Club. We had 3 boats side by side as they came down to finish lap 1. Great boat racing.
It certainly was, Steven. It was a 3-boat race bringing up the rear in the 4th boat. That's Jerry Hale with the local ride, the Waikiki Trolley.
Owned by Bob Fendler, a resident of Honolulu, very nearby. And look at this race now. Mike Hansen giving up the lead right there after 1 lap to Mark Tate coming around the outside in the Freddy's Club.
And as we mentioned earlier, Steve, Tater knows this course very well. He's the winningest driver on this course. So far be it for him to think that he doesn't have a shot to win a heat, even though he's in the outside.
Now you can see by the time we get into the first turn again and look from overhead, Mike Hansen has dropped back into 3rd place, and our leader is now Mark Tate in the Ohana Freddy's Club. But Jimmy King and the Lumar off to his left continued to challenge.
Now Jimmy King getting that inside lane. He's held that inside lane for virtually this entire heat, Steve, and it doesn't seem like he's able to make that much ground up on Mark Tate in the Freddy's Club.
The turn off to our left here, we call it the Pearl City turn, a little bit rough, and this may have worked against Jimmy King. He got some rough water there right at the apex of the turn, and he seemed to scrape off a little speed every time he came through there. Mark Tate on the outside looks rough here, but these are better conditions actually than the inside of that turn.
Mark Tate was your winner in Heat 1B, and Steve caught up with him on the docks.
Mark Tate, I bet you don't remember the last time you lost a heat on this race course. You like it here, don't you?
Well, it's yeah, it's a good race course. It's a lot of fun. I think the race course kind of really sets my driving style. I like to run the boat real light. You got to run it light to get it over all the junk out there. And you know, Freddy's Club and Jim Harvey's team gave me a good race boat there for that heat.
ESPN Speed World coverage of the UHRA JN Chevrolet Hydrofest is brought to you by Las Vegas. Anything can happen and usually does when it comes to special events. By Ralph's First and Savings, first in Southern California. And by O'Doul's non-alcoholic brew, a taste worth toasting.
Welcome back to historic Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The Hydros are here, the drivers as well, taking the opportunity to sign some autographs.
When the Heat 2A draw came out, we all figured it was going to be another race between Dave Vilwalk and Chip Hanauer and the Miss Bud and the Miss Pico. Little did we know that the little boat that could, the Waikiki Trolley, a local favorite driven by Jerry Hale, would have its say in Heat 2A, and it came down to a 2-boat race.
Hanauer put the Pico in lane 1. That's right where he wanted to be, with the Bud out in lane 5. In between boats, Jimmy King and the Lumar settled into lane 2. And Jerry Hale took the Waikiki Trolley way outside. We'll call it lane 6. Budweiser, the leader, at the starting line.
And Steve, the 2 boats that got the lane 1 and 2 assignments, Pico and Lumar, neither of them finished this race. The Pico even going into the infield, DNFs for both Lumar and Pico.
Both of them out of the heat before they got to the first turn. A big disappointment again. No Budweiser-Pico matchup. Appeared at this point to be a cakewalk for Dave Vilwalk, but Jerry Hale, the world's fastest trolley driver, bringing the Waikiki Trolley up right beside Miss Budweiser, surprising everybody, including himself and Dave Vilwalk.
The people on the docks were going crazy when Jerry Hale made a move on Dave Vilwalk in this back stretch. And look at the lead that Jerry Hale and the Waikiki Trolley built. About a half a rooster tail lead over Miss Budweiser and Dave Vilwalk. But here comes Vilwalk again.
Again, the Budweiser appears to be able to go just about as fast as it wants to. But Jerry Hale and Bob Fendler's Waikiki Trolley just did a tremendous job in this race. And as you said, they had the big crowd on its feet for 3 laps.
You certainly thought that if it was going to be a 2-boat race, it would have been between Chip and Dave. Now it's between Dave and Jerry not giving up an inch as this race continues in the last lap.
And he's on the outside making it tough. Dave Villwalk has the advantage of the shorter race course, one of our closest races of the day between Miss Budweiser and the Waikiki Trolley.
Not just one of the closest races of the day, one of the closest races of the year. Usually this deck-to-deck racing reserved for the Unlimited Lights, Steve. Today we get a good look at Unlimited's going deck-to-deck.
Dave Villwalk able to pull out and win this by a boat length at best. Great job by Jerry Hale and the Waikiki Trolley.
Certainly Jerry Hale surprising a lot of people and getting the fans on their feet. Miss Budweiser wins it. Waikiki Trolley in second, and unfortunately for Pico and Lumar, they had a DNF.
Well, Jerry, we have you second by a couple inches, but that's not bad considering who you're racing out there.
Yeah, that red wagon, he seemed like he was taking his time coming on there, but I tell you, it was great fun out there. I hope he had as much fun as I did.
You've got a few of these events under your belt now. Looking out the side window and seeing the national champion there has to be kind of a thrill.
Yeah, it's exciting, and especially to run alongside of him there. I'll do that anytime I can.
So I guess the wagon beats the trolley in Heat 2A. 2B coming up next. First, Chip Hanauer is going to have to right the ship to get that boat back on the water. We'll be back after this. Speed World coverage of the Hydros continues.
Lots of activity here at Hydrofest 99. Here's Rich with a look at Heat 2B.
Lady Luck smiled on Mark Webber in the York International in Heat 2B. He didn't have to face the likes of Dave Villwalk or Chip Hanauer. They ran in 2A. But remember, you got to be good to be lucky, and you got to be lucky to be good. And Mark Webber's been a little bit of both here in Honolulu. Remember, he is the defending champion here at Pearl Harbor. Some structural damage to the back of the boat didn't affect him in Heat 1A, and it didn't affect him either in 2B.
Guess who's in lane one? Mark Webber spent the entire season there in the York International. Freddie's Club Ohana with Mark Tate right beside him. Then Mike Hansen and the Miss Starro Enterprises out in lane three. And a good start for Tater. Mark Tate took the Freddie's Club out ahead, but would he stay there?
Well, whoever's going to win this heat will have to beat two boats, not three. Ken Muscatel in the Northwest Unlimited boat withdrew before the heat. Only a three-boat race for 2B.
And you can see here good, close racing between Mark and Mark, two residents of the state of Michigan, a long ways from home. On the outside, the black boat is the Ohana Hotel's Freddie's Club. To his left, the York International, which right now may be the best of the rest if you take the Budweiser out of the mix. From our O'Doul's Eye in the Sky, you see the black and yellow boats hooking it up here on Pearl Harbor at just about 200 miles per hour.
Both of these boats running very well all weekend in Honolulu. Mark Webber coming into Hawaii on a high note in third place, not only in high points, but also in driver points.
They have continued to improve throughout the season, and the new combination of Mark Tate and Jim Harvey looking very good in the Freddie's Club.
Here's a look at Miss York International now extending its lead over Mark Tate into that turn and going into the front stretch once again. Mark Tate going to have to do a lot to overcome Mark Webber, who seems to be riding very smoothly on a race course that he feels he deserves to win at because he won last year.
And driving a boat that's actually won this event the last 2 years. This hole just likes Pearl Harbor.
York International in first, Miss Starro in second, and due to a one-lap penalty, Freddie's Club ends up in third.
Mark, there aren't many things I would gamble on in boat racing, but one of them would be you getting lane one. You've made a living in there all season.
Don't say that. I need lane one for one heat this afternoon, and I haven't earned it yet.
You've had a lot of practice with the slow start and taking the lane early. It's really worked out well for you.
But that one I didn't even really work for, to be honest with you. I wasn't even sure I wanted to be in one, but it just sort of showed up there, and I just kind of cruised and actually tried to learn some stuff for the final. That's what I did.
That's where you'd like to be in the final, I'm sure.
One would guess.
Never one to be coy with us. Mark Webber looking for a win later on in the day in the big final. The Lumar's out there, the Budweiser's out there. We've got heats 3A and B coming up next on ESPN Speed World. Welcome back to Honolulu, Hawaii. Speed World coverage of the Ralph's Thunder Tour presented by Las Vegas, the JN Automotive Hydrofest. There's a look at the local favorite, the Waikiki Trolley, driven by Jerry Hale.
What is a Waikiki trolley? Normally, it's one of the best ways to see Waikiki, but this particular trolley is on Ford Island and showing some of the race fans an area that hasn't been open to the public since World War II. A rare combination of tropical beauty and some of the finest biggest, most powerful fighting machines ever built by man. This, of course, the USS Missouri in its new berth, very near the historic Arizona Memorial. Back on the water a little bit faster, Waikiki Trolley, Rich.
Certainly a little faster, and it showed that in Heat 2. Now getting ready for Heat 3, the U-19, driven by Jerry Hale, who gave Miss Budweiser a real run for its money.
And once again, he would have Miss Budweiser along with Mike Hansen in the U-9 and Jimmy King in the Lumar window film.
This week's Alamo Almanac, presented by Alamo Rent-A-Car. Ready, set, go. Come on, drive happy today. It's been 10 years since the hydroplanes first came to Hawaii. Steve's with the man who started it all.
The Military and Civilian Committee working on the 10th annual Pearl Harbor Hydrofest has dedicated this event to Admiral Denny Blair, Commander-in-Chief of all U.S. forces here in the Pacific, not because of your current command, but because 10 years ago, you were the young captain of Pearl Harbor who said, hey, how about hydroplanes on these historic waters? Did you really imagine anything like this?
No, a few of us were sitting around thinking about how we could use this body of water here at Pearl Harbor, thought of hydroplanes, put them together, and it's really took off, and it's been getting better and better ever since.
You had seen events on the mainland. I'm sure that's where you got the idea. Does this one look the way you thought it would?
This one looks the way I thought it would, but a little bit better. With the great scenery we have here in Hawaii, with the association with the Navy and Pearl Harbor, I think it has a distinctive character that sets it apart.
I know one of the things on your mind at the time was the opportunity for your people to work with the community here, the way you could work together that you hadn't before, and that has really worked out for you.
No, that's really been a big feature of this Hydrofest. This Ford Island that we're now on, and you can see in back of me the Missouri, which is now stationed out here, used to be cut off. It used to be an island accessible by ferry. Now a bridge is built, and it's a little more accessible. But back then, just bringing civilians out here to Ford Island, seeing what the Navy can do, mixing with our sailors and their families was a really good thing for building bonds with the community, and that's been a feature of it that's continued and even increased.
They find out you can join the Navy, you can have some fun, you could end up in a beautiful place like this.
That's right, and I got to tell you, Steve, we're still hiring. We need 50,000 really bright young men and women every year with a bunch of skill specialties to learn a trade, to serve your country, and then you get a chance to come to a place like Hawaii and take part in a great event like Hydrofest, so come on in.
Well, all of us who have been coming here now for 10 years certainly appreciate what you started, Admiral, and we look forward to coming back for a long time.
No, we look forward to hosting it, and it's just a great event that's going to get better, and there'll be another 10 years of it, I'm sure.
The Navy certainly the best hosts for the hydroplane racing as we are getting set for Heat 3A to start. There's Mike Hansen and the Miss Starro Enterprises, among others. Heat 3A is coming up from the Hydros in Hawaii after this. Welcome back to beautiful Pearl Harbor. Of course, in the distance, you see the USS Arizona Memorial, and there is the USS Missouri that we talked about earlier. We're getting set for Heat 3A. Here's Steve with the lineups.
4 boats on the water. Lane 1 would be taken by Jimmy King in the Lumar window film, also sponsored by our good friends from the Outrigger Hotels here. Right next to him, Mike Hansen, who made a great start last time out. Then moving toward the outside, the Waikiki Trolley, Miss Budweiser all day outside in lane 5.
Certainly looks like a good draw for the Miss Budweiser. Not that many fast boats in this, or at least not that many fast boats that have been running well today.
And here's a surprise. The Budweiser is not only on the outside, he is way back. As they go into the first turn, he is a distant third. He is not, at this point, gaining on the leaders, but he does have 3 laps in which to do so. Jimmy King taking the Lumar window film out to an early lead.
And no offense to Jimmy King and the Lumar, who seem to be riding very well this heat, but we're not used to talking about current leaders and not seeing the big red boat in there.
Normally, by this point in the first lap, the Budweiser has made up that overlap from way on the outside. Right now, he's not even second. That's Mike Hansen in the Starro Enterprises running second. Something may be wrong with the Budweiser. He is not gaining on either one of these boats.
We are in the Pearl City turn, and right now it's the Lumar in first, about a rooster tail and a half lead on Mike Hansen and the Miss Starro Enterprises, and there is currently third place Miss Budweiser and Dave Vilwalk. Sounds very strange to say, and like you said, you can only wonder what's going on with that boat.
He's not only looking to be a little down in horsepower, running very, very wide. He has to start in lane 5. He's way out in lane 6 right now, and it's just remarkable to see 2 boats staying ahead of him. You have to wonder just what's going on here.
Jimmy King hugging that inside lane, staying inside and keeping his lead, actually building on that lead. Jimmy King with the Lumar window film currently leading Heat 3A. But I got to get back to talking about the Miss Budweiser. Every race we've seen so far today that the Miss Budweiser has been involved in, Dave Villwock's shown that he has that slingshot ability, Stephen. We don't see that right now.
Well, either this is not a healthy Miss Budweiser or there's some sort of strategy being employed here. Our overhead shot, there's only one boat in the picture, and that's the bright yellow outrigger Lumar. Here's the Bud running a distant third right now. He is ahead of Jerry Hale and the Waikiki trolley, but they are coming up behind him as well.
And Steve, one can only speculate on the conversation that Dave Villwock's having with his team back in the pits, talking to crew chief Mark Smith, among others. What's going on with the Miss Budweiser right now?
They have had such a near-perfect season. They simply haven't bobbled at all, and it looks now like there is some kind of a problem aboard the beer boat. Miss Budweiser running in third place, a big surprise here. We thought by now he would have reeled in the leaders. I think he's actually losing ground to Jimmy King and perhaps even more surprisingly to Mike Hansen in the Starro Enterprises.
And as you mentioned, Miss Budweiser in a 4-boat field, you never expect him to be in second, let alone third or fourth, but it looks like that's where he's going to end up, and maybe he's just conceding this race at this point, 2 some laps in.
If you're Jimmy King, you got to be wondering why there hasn't been any red boat in your mirrors so far. He has to be a very surprised young man out there leading this heat.
Surprised, yes, but also happy. I'm sure that Jimmy King, Bill Worster with the Lumar are very happy to take home 400 points if that's how it ends up.
They qualified well. This boat has a history, really, of performing well here on Pearl Harbor back in its days as the Tide with George Woods and Nate Brown driving. It always ran well here in Hawaii. But this has to be a little bit of a surprise to them as well as the crowd here on Ford Island.
Well, 2 laps are now in the books, and we're heading into the Aloha Stadium turn that, Steve, you coined yourself. Aloha Stadium off in the distance. Running second right now, Mike Hansen and the Miss Starro Enterprises, but a good 3 to 4 rooster tails behind Jimmy King.
And I can tell you what's on Mike's radio right now. Where the heck is the Budweiser? Dave Villwock is slowing down. He's not going as fast as he did the last lap. Now he's in danger of being passed by Jerry Hale and the Waikiki trolley.
Here's Miss Budweiser, and if you didn't know, you would think right now we'd be watching Miss Budweiser in the lead. The fans are shocked. Everybody's shocked. You and I are shocked.
Off to the right, there is Jerry Hale. He has moved by. Now, the Budweiser is not only running slow, he ran very, very wide. You have to, this may be a strategy situation, Rich. There might be more to this story than an ailing boat.
Jerry Hale crosses the finish line in third place, meaning Miss Budweiser ends up in fourth. Your winner, Jimmy King and the Lumar window film. In second place, U9 Miss Starro Enterprises, Waikiki Trolley in third, Miss Budweiser in fourth.
Jim?
Yes, sir.
You had the red boat in your mirrors, and then he was gone completely. You had to be as surprised as we were.
Very surprised. I was expecting to see the red boat come up pretty quick, and but the guys over here at Lumar Outrigger Ohana Hotels, I mean, they've thrashed all weekend, and they gave me something to play with this last heat.
400 points puts you in great shape for the final, so we'll see you again.
Hopefully so. Thank you.
As you know, it takes a lot of points to get in the front line of the final, and before even running their third heat of the day, Miss Pico eliminated from a possible frontline start in the final. Steve, you alluded to it earlier. It might have been the part of some strategy at work with Miss Budweiser.
And here you see the response by the Pico team. They are folding their wings, getting ready for the trip home. Apparently, they will not be on the water for 3B. Chip Hanauer explaining to Commissioner Ken Muscatel what's going on. That's Bill Worster, the Lumar owner, joining the conversation. And there is a lot of conversation right now in the pit area. What has happened to the Pico team? They did not have a good day mechanically, but did the Budweiser, in effect, take their arch rival out of the final heat?
Whatever the outcome of that story, we'll have to wait and see. You saw Mark Webber getting ready to get in the water for Heat 3B. So is Mark Tate and the Freddy's Club. And those are the only 2 boats you'll be seeing, Steve. It's going to be a 2-boat race in 3B. Miss Pico not racing, and neither is Miss Northwest Unlimited. Should have been a 4-boat race. Now it's just a 2-boat race. Steve's trying to get a word with Dave Villwock from the Budweiser camp to hear their side of the story. But regardless of what happens, Miss Budweiser being taken out of the water after Heat 3, they have to fix whatever problems they might have getting ready for the finals, which they will be running in shortly. Steve is now in the pit area at the Budweiser camp to talk to Dave.
Well, David, the speculation down pit row is that you intentionally let some people run ahead of you to keep Chip Hanauer from being in the front row. What's your answer to that?
Well, we legitimately had a problem with the fuel control. It had barely run. We had a fitting that came loose and an engine. We've run that boat all year long, and it barely had enough fuel pressure to run. So we were lucky just to finish at all. And unfortunately, they didn't finish. They, being the Pico boat, didn't finish a couple of other heats, or finished poorly and didn't finish another heat. And so that put them in a bad position. However, had they run that third heat and had they won it, and Harvey not finished, they still would be on the front row. In any event, they'd be in the final heat as a trailer, like many of us have been from time to time.
Well, that's the company line from the Budweiser camp. Chip Hanauer still explaining the Pico point of view to Commissioner Ken Muscatel. Rich is down there with the Commissioner.
Ken,
Yeah.
I know you just found out about this or found out about what everyone is talking about. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, again, until I find out for myself personally, it sounds like they purposely ran so slow that to keep Pico from being able to run on the front row in the race. And we're supposed to race, every heat, to the best of your ability.
Heat 3A's in the books. We're getting set for Heat 3B. Jim Harvey in the Freddy's Club. Mark Webber in the York International also in this heat. It should be a good race between those two boats, Steve.
Well, here's some more math for you. Not as complicated as that point situation, but you take a 4-boat heat, put 2 of the boats on the beach, and you have 2 left to run here in Heat 3B. And once again, it's Mark and Mark, the Michiganders, all the way down here to the Central South Pacific to run their hydroplanes on Pearl Harbor.
They got together in Heat 2B with the York International winning out and Freddy's Club finishing in 3rd. So Freddy's Club might have a little chip on its shoulder considering the York International.
This boat continues to improve, but the York International team, owned by Kim and Debbie Gregory out of Las Vegas, has really become one of the top dogs in this sport. They are the defending champions, and they wouldn't be a big surprise if they won here again.
And speaking of top dogs, Steve has caught up with one of the top dogs in the Navy, who has been such a gracious host to us here in Honolulu.
Admiral John Towns is the commander of Navy Region Hawaii, which means your new command includes Pearl Harbor and a hydroplane race of all things. Did they warn you about this?
They did not warn me about it. I was aware of it from a previous tour here in Hawaii. I did not realize the involvement of the Navy in the hydroplane races themselves, but I have come to appreciate very much the cooperation and coordination between the corporate world, the Navy, and the local community in making this such a success.
One of the boats going on right now with one of those big turbine engines, not unlike the ones that power the bigger boat behind us here.
Well, we like to consider it a ship behind us, and I have the USS Reuben James, a gas turbine-powered warship, who has just recently returned from operations in the Western Pacific. And she personifies very much our forward presence in this part of the world. Sailors doing what sailors do best, supporting our national interests.
And your sailors have done a tremendous job of supporting this event. A lot of man-hours go into putting it on. The hospitality has been tremendous. A big mahalo from all of us who have enjoyed coming here now for 10 years.
Well, we would like to think you will continue to come, visit us as often as you want, but certainly every year at this time. And we hope to make the hydroplane races even better than they have been in the past.
Steve, we get to be hosted by the Navy in Norfolk. We get to be hosted by them here, and it's always a wonderful experience.
They do a tremendous job, not only of hosting us, but putting on these major sporting events. Heat 3B is next up as ESPN Speed World coverage continues.
Seems like we're in Scotland, but we're actually in Hawaii. Speed World coverage of Ralph's Thunder Tour presented by Las Vegas and Honolulu. And from the music of the bagpipes to the music of the turbine engines, in lane 1, it's Mark Webber.
Mark Tate will take the Freddy's Club Ohana into lane 2. Ohana, a word we'll be hearing a little more, as that is a new division of the Outrigger Hotels, our hosts here in Hawaii this past decade. Only a 2-boat heat, Rich, but 2 very equally matched boats, and it could be a good race.
Almost like match play in golf, Steve. You don't usually see just 2 boats on the water, but now that's what these boats are faced with. And I'm wondering if maybe it's not something they're looking forward to. Usually you like to use Heat 3B heading into the finals as kind of a barometer, how to gauge yourself, what lane you want going into the finals. These boats really won't have that opportunity since they're only running 1 and 2.
And realistically, they are both in the front row of the final heat if they finish here. So the more important issue is to stay out of the saltwater spray from the other boat's rooster tail, keep the turbine engine clean, and just bring it home healthy. But we do see a nice lead now by the York International and Mark Webber. How many times, Rich, has he had lane 1 at the start of heats this year?
You mentioned it to him, and he said he wasn't even sure if he wanted lane 1, but lo and behold, that's where he is again, and he's building his lead on Mark Tate and the Freddy's Club. It's about a 2 rooster tail lead right now for Mark Webber.
After 1 lap with 2 laps to go, 2, as I said, rather equally matched race boats throughout the season, but perhaps the York International has come on now to have a bit of an advantage over the rest of the field here at the end of the year. By rest of the field, I mean everybody but Miss Budweiser. This team has really improved.
You really get the feeling like Mark Tate, who stepped into this boat just a few races ago in Seattle is when he made his debut, that now he's finally gotten a good feel for the boat, and he's really comfortable in that boat. They've ironed out a few wrinkles, and now coming into Hawaii, they look very strong.
There were some changes that Mark Tate asked for in this hull. Jim Harvey and crew have made them. It is riding beautifully, and it doesn't look like they're going to go after the York International. You probably wouldn't get around that yellow boat on the outside anyway, and you risk getting into that rooster tail. It could end your day.
And if things keep up like this, it will mark the 2nd consecutive time that Mark Webber has bested Mark Tate in a race here.
There is a lot linking the history of these 2 boats. Both drivers are named Mark. Both are from Michigan. Jim Harvey's black boat won this race in 1993 with Steve David driving. Mark Tate, who's driving it now, has won 3 times, but always in the other boat, the yellow boat, when it was the Winston Eagle, the camel-powered Smokin' Joe, and the Close Call. And Mark Webber, who's driving it now, won here last year. Most of the history of this race is tied up in these 2 boats right here.
And we thought this wasn't going to be exciting. Just a 2-boat field, and all the history from Honolulu and hydroplanes is 1 boat and another boat. The Mark Webber driven York International and the Mark Tate driven Freddy's Club. And right now it's not much of a race in Heat 3B. Mark Webber driving very well.
Kim Gregory out of Las Vegas, very happy with his young crew chief, Kenny Strickland, who goes back to the Steve Woomer days when Mark Tate drove for that team. He feels that he and his team have really put together a good race boat here. And watching it today, Rich, I would have to agree. They have been flawless. They've had a great boat ride, good horsepower, and this team is definitely one to watch here in the final heat.
Mark Webber beats out Mark Tate. It's York International in 1st, Freddy's Club in 2nd, and Steve's in the pits with the winner, Mark Webber.
Don't want to put any pressure on you, but the crowd's starting to chant 3-peat. You know what that means.
Well, I got a good attitude, but there's a long way to go. There's only 1 heat, but let me tell you, it's 5 long laps. It's kind of rough out there right now. But I'll tell you, this York International crew, they're giving us a good race boat. We broke it yesterday, and we're going to give it 110%. That you can take to the bank. After that, just watch and see.
This old boat likes this race course. It's had a lot of success here. Looks good today.
Well, that certainly is a confidence booster for the team and for myself and the Gregories and everyone involved with this thing.
Commissioner Ken Muscatel here in Hawaii again for the 10th year, and time flies when you're having fun. This is certainly a great event venue for us, and it's been getting better year after year.
And actually, this is the best year, the best organized, the best crowd. The weather's fantastic. We're going to expect a great event.
What about being in Hawaii for 10 years? Like I said, does it seem like it's just flown by?
It has. I was here at the first event in 1990, so was Jerry Hopp, and we just can't believe it's been a whole decade that we've been racing here, but the event has matured, and this is one of the biggest sporting events in the islands. It's a thrill.
And great sponsorship as well. Great support from the people in Hawaii.
Absolutely, and the community is really behind this event, as in partnership with the U.S. Navy.
Now we get a look at the Unlimited Lights final run a little bit earlier from our O'Doul's Eye in the Sky. You see the blue boat in the middle. That's Randy Haas and the Miss Combear pulling out ahead. It's a 3-boat field. Should have been a 4-boat field, though, Steve. Phil Bonazzini and the Pocket Mechanic flipped during qualifying, not racing in the final.
4 boats made the trip here to Hawaii. Not easy for them to get here. We were missing, of course, 2 of our top dogs in the Alamo and Charlie Wiggins' boat, the Earl's Performance. That made Randy Haas the class of the field, and that's the way he looked all weekend. A good, strong performance by the team out of Ohio.
Steve caught up with the winner of the Unlimited Lights final, Randy Haas.
Well, Bud, it's a win. Number 2 on the season. Would it be fair to say you had your ups and downs this year?
Oh, we've had plenty of ups and downs. I guess we've been up and down a couple times this year.
You did have to beat the conditions here as well as the other boats. Maybe not as dramatic as the big win up at Seafair, but this one a little more of an endurance run.
Yeah, it was the boat's getting pretty beat up. It's got to go back to the boat builder, and the water was extremely rough out there. I was just hoping that it'd stay together. We've been patching it all weekend, and it did what it had to do, I guess.
Well, you proved you were fast this year, and we'll see you with some new competition in 2000.
Yes, we will. It'll be good to be back. Hopefully, we'll keep it right side up and everything in one piece next year.
Congratulations to Randy Haas and the Miss Comp Air. We're getting set for the final heat of the final race of the final year of the century. Mark Webber among the drivers getting ready for the finals from Hawaii. The drama is building for the final from Honolulu. Speed World coverage of Ralph's Thunder Tour presented by Las Vegas, the JN Chevrolet Thunderfest. 6-boat field, including the U9 boat, Mike Hansen and the Starro Enterprises.
Mike very cautious leaving the pit area, trying to avoid taking in that very dangerous salt water, which can destroy the turbine motor. He'll try to get it up on a plane cleanly.
Here's our version of an officer and a gentleman. Steve with Hank Sanford.
While the unlimited hydroplane fleet is making its way across the Pacific, the men and women of Naval Station Pearl Harbor, under the command of Captain Hank Sanford in his second year here, are doing a tremendous job of putting together an event that's very unusual for a military base. Once again, great job, and we thank you.
Well, thank you. It is a little unusual, but as you know, we've been doing this for 10 years now, and it's been a great event every year, and it keeps getting better every year. And there's so many people behind the scenes that do so much work to make it a first-class event.
All of the owners and drivers and crews enjoy coming here. The hospitality is tremendous. We know you'll be with us at least one more year, and a big mahalo from all of us to you and your men and women who just do a tremendous job.
Well, thanks. Thank you very much. You know, we say that Pearl Harbor is the Navy's best home port, and we like to show it off. So you're very welcome to be here.
There's a look at the Lumar. Jimmy King driving very well, and the Miss Budweiser, who had some problems allegedly in Heat 3A. We're going to have to see what happens in the final.
Great overhead shot here of the milling going on as the boats jockey for position here before the running of the winner-take-all final heat. Remember, the winner of this heat, you throw out all the points and everything that's happened earlier today. The winner of this heat wins the big trophy.
Miss Starro Enterprises, driven by Mike Hansen, has had a pretty decent day himself so far on the waters of Pearl Harbor.
He's made a couple of great starts. Mike is a veteran. He's really been bringing that hull along. And these folks, the Waikiki trolley owned by the local Bob Fendler out of Honolulu, also having a superior day.
Yeah, gave everybody a thrill there in Heat 2A when they almost edged the Miss Budweiser. In that heat, had to settle for second place and 300 points, but it was a good 300 for Jerry Hale.
Jerry Hale, the school teacher out of Compton, California, joined this team a couple of seasons back, was rookie.
And Mike Hansen would rather get an inside lane to try and get a good start. The stage has been set for the final. It's winner take all from Honolulu, and when we come back, we'll bring you that final on ESPN Speed World. ESPN Speed World coverage of the UHRA JN Chevrolet Hydrofest from Pearl Harbor is brought to you by Las Vegas. Anything can happen and usually does when it comes to special events. By Ralph's, first in savings, first in Southern California. And by O'Doul's non-alcoholic brew, a taste worth toasting.
The 6-boat field on Pearl Harbor ready for the running of the final heat of the 1999 JN Chevrolet Hydrofest, and the lanes have now been established. A great shot from overhead as the field comes down to start. In lane 1, it will be once again Mark Webber and the York International. Jimmy King puts the Lumar window film in lane 2. Then Mark Tate in the Freddy's Club. Dave Vilwalk is in lane 5. 2 boats outside him. Mike Hansen in lane 6. That puts the Waikiki trolley way out in lane 7. A great start for Dave Vilwalk, an early lead for the Miss Budweiser.
It looks like they've righted the ship quite literally, Steve. A great start from the Miss Budweiser, speeding out ahead of the field from lane 5 and passing, it looked like Mark Webber right there in lane 1. So no troubles in the finals. Whatever might have been plaguing Miss Budweiser and Dave Vilwalk in Heat 3 doesn't seem to be bothering them in the final.
Just an incredible first turn for Bernie Little's Red Rocket, motoring around the entire field. You should not be able to do that. But today, this boat has had the field covered with the exception of one heat where something happened, and perhaps we'll never know exactly what.
Into the back turn, the Pearl City turn, and it's Miss Budweiser in the lead, about a rooster tail lead over the U10 Mark Webber and the York International.
You saw Vilwalk and the Budweiser out in lane 5, and if you joined us late in the season, that because of previous victories, consecutive wins move you out. First we saw him restricted from lane 1, no problem. Then lane 2, then 3, and now lane 4. Now he doesn't have to stay out here throughout the entire heat. When he has a legal overlap, he can move over, and you see him now in lane 2, but he's leaving room for Mark Webber and the York International to run in lane 1.
I don't think it matters much what lane Mark Webber is in right now or what lane Miss Budweiser is in right now. They look like they're running full guns a-blazing, finishing this season on a strong note. And you know Dave Vilwalk would like nothing more than to answer the critics with an emphatic exclamation point in the final.
It wasn't a perfect season for the Budweiser team. They were beaten twice on the water by Chip Hanauer and the Pico. In Madison, they ended the day upside down, and of course the Pico won that one. But they have definitely been the dominant team once again in the sport this year. And unfortunately for the competition, it looks like one of their strongest combinations came together right here on Pearl Harbor.
Obviously, Chip Hanauer and the Miss Pico not racing in the final. They folded up shop and will be getting things ready for next season, I presume. But right now, back to the final at hand, and Mark Webber in second place. Here's the race for third, though. Very exciting. Freddie's Club and the Lumar Window Film. And right now, Mark Tate pulling ahead in third.
Great race between the two Outrigger-sponsored boats back there for third place. Meanwhile, first and second, pretty well decided if everybody keeps running. Dave Vilwalk and his Miss Budweiser. That is a 6,500-pound boat traveling 200 miles per hour over very, very rough water here on Pearl Harbor. A very impressive day for this team.
And it's been a very impressive season once again. Looking like it's going to be back-to-back 8 victory seasons for Dave Vilwalk and the Miss Budweiser. And I just want to remind everybody, right now we're watching the final. It's more of a marathon than a sprint. 5 laps in the final compared to just 3 laps in the first 3 heats of the day.
The waters of Pearl Harbor really much rougher than they appear on camera. There you see the Budweiser launching off a wave as he begins to accelerate down the front straightaway, slowing down to about 145 or so in the turn, and then up to about 200. Here's that race for third place, and right now it's Mark Tate and the Freddie's Club with just a little bit of an advantage over Jimmy King and the Lumar Window Film, but third place not yet decided.
And I'm sure Mark Tate would like to get a little bit of a bigger lead on Jimmy King so he could get into the inside lane and secure that third place spot. Right now, it's all Miss Budweiser and Dave Vilwalk, your current leader, and he's been your leader since the starting line.
A perfect season appears to be an unattainable goal in boat racing. If anybody could do it, these guys could, and even they lost 3 times this year. Now look at this race. Jimmy King using his advantage on the inside. We pointed out earlier where he had hit some rough water and had some problems, and they're looking good now.
We've seen some great deck-to-deck racing here in Pearl Harbor, Steve, and that's going to be a great way to finish it, the battle for third. But once again, Dave Vilwalk and the Miss Budweiser not concerned with third. They're concerned with winning this winner-take-all final, and it looks like they're going to cruise into doing that.
Look at Jimmy King now. He used the advantage of the inside in the Aloha Stadium turn to get by Mark Tate and the Freddie's Club. So this may be a reversal of the time these two hooked up in an earlier heat. Now the Lumar appears to be moving out, putting some water between himself and the Freddie's Club.
Certainly a great weekend for Jimmy King, Bill Worster, and the Lumar crew. They won Heat 3A, and it looks like they're going to secure a spot in third place for the final. A great way for the Lumar crew to end this season.
Miss Budweiser on her way to the checkered flag. Dave Vilwalk, with all his victories, had never won here in Hawaii. So this will be a first for him, certainly not for his team, though.
A lot of history made this season, Steve. Dave Vilwalk passed Dean Chenoweth on the all-time wins. Obviously, everyone thinking that Chip Hanauer would eventually tie Bill Muncie's all-time wins record. That's not going to happen. We can only hope that Chip comes back next year and challenges that record again.
This was Chip's last chance, of course, in '99 to tie the record. Will he be back? That'll be one of our big off-season questions. Jimmy King now comfortably in third place. Bill Worster's team having a good day.
Well, here's the finish line. Dave Vilwalk is your champion, the winner of the JN Chevrolet Hydrofest, his 8th win on the year, and Jimmy King with a good showing in third. Second place going to Mark Webber in the York International.
And the question will remain through the offseason. What would have happened with a healthy Pico under Chip Hanauer here in the final heat? Well, we'll never know. Jimmy King will be very happy with his third place finish for the Outrigger Hotels Lumar Window Film entry. And Bob Fendler's Waikiki trolley, driven by Jerry Hale, had one of its better days here at home.
Coming around that final turn, the Pearl City turn, and into the final straightaway, it's 5th place. Looks like it's going to be a 5th place finish for Waikiki trolley, Jerry Hale, and Bob Fendler's crew. A good showing in the final, a great showing for the weekend for the hometown boat.
Speaking of great weekends, Dave Villwock and Miss Budweiser near perfect as he takes a victory lap with Pearl City in the background.
Allowed to soak in the scenery on the victory lap. Miss Budweiser wins, York International in second, followed by Lumar, Freddy's Club, Waikiki Trolley, and Miss Starro Enterprises in sixth. The high point standings are over. Miss Budweiser wins, Miss Pico in second, and the York International finishing close behind in third. As for the drivers, Dave Villwock wins. Mark Webber jumps up to second place, followed by Greg Hopp and Chip Hanauer.
Well, David, I know you like to win them all. That didn't happen in '99, but 8 wins, the national championship. Congratulations on a great season.
Well, we've been real lucky. It's been a great year for us. Mark Smith, Lauren Sawyer, the entire Budweiser, too, have done a great job all year long. And, you know, I've just a piece of this puzzle here that brings the success. But, I mean, there's thousands and thousands of parts that can go wrong in these boats. And we had one go wrong today, you know, but luckily it went wrong at the right time, and Mark and the guys fixed it, and it was awesome in the final.
Was your biggest competition today from the other boats or Pearl Harbor?
Both, I think, the other boats, but I knew that York was going to give us a big run, and the other guys were going fast in there. I had to stay out there for a long time, but luckily I think I had a little better boat ride than the other guys, and I was able to get over the top of the rough stuff.
Looking forward to 2000 now. Bernie talking about a new boat. I'm sure you're in on those plans.
Yeah, we're excited about a lot of things. UHRA is doing a lot of good things, a lot of new sponsors coming on this Rouse Tour, so we're having a good time.
A celebratory kiss from his wife, Pam Villwock. What a year it's been. 11 races. Time flies when you're having fun. So many people go into putting together a television broadcast like this one we bring you for the UHRA Tour. 2 of those people, Mike Mullen and Jan Brown, did fantastic jobs all year long, bringing you some beautiful camera shots.
And speaking of thank yous, as always, a big mahalo to an old friend, Tom Burke, and congratulations on his new Ohana division of the Outrigger Hotels, our host again here, and a fabulous one at that.
And a lot of thank yous to you, the fans, for tuning in to ESPN2 Speed World coverage of Ralph's Thunder Tour presented by Las Vegas. We've had a lot of thrills and a lot of spills, and we had a blast bringing it all to you on ESPN2. So mahalo, thank you for watching. And a hui ho, until we meet again. For Steve Montgomery, I'm Rich Hollenberg saying so long, and we'll see you next season. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For more, log on to ESPN.com, part of the Go Network, go.com. We'll see you next time on the UHRA Thunder Tour.